I'm currently traipsing through Europe, which is both a phrase I've always wanted to say and a thing I've always wanted to do. And if you've been following along on my Substack or Instagram stories, you know that I've been doing some epically cool tours, staying at Hotel Snob approved hotels, and generally living my best life. And all of that was possible and planned with Fora. Yes, the exciting stuff, but also the less sexy things that become necessary when you're in a foreign country trying to figure out things like train tickets, airport transfers, or how anything works when you don't speak the language. What's interesting is the more I've used Fora, the more I've thought, wait, I would crush this as a career. So friend, I'm even considering becoming a Fora advisor myself when I get back. Fora is a modern travel agency designed for people who want to build a meaningful travel business of their own. And you don't need prior experience. Fora provides the technology, training, and community to help get you started. So your next act starts here. Become a Fora advisor today at foratravel.com/woman. That's FORA travel.com/woman. And make sure you tell them that we sent you. foratravel.com/woman. You know that phase where something in your business clearly needs support, but not enough support for a full-time hire? Or that weird in-between where you need expertise now, but you don't have the time, energy, or desire to turn it into a 2-month hiring process? And that's why platforms like Upwork exist. Hiring support for your business shouldn't be a headache or a drain on your budget. Upwork makes it easy to hire specialized freelancers quickly so you get the expertise you need right now. You can browse profiles, review past work, and get help scoping the role so you can hire with confidence and get started quickly. And it's not just for one type of work. We're talking marketing, operations, tech, analytics, all of it. It's free to sign up, and posting a job is easy. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com. Quick pause. We expanded to YouTube because we keep hearing, I needed this 20 years ago, and the next generation shouldn't have to wait. So tell the young women in your world who are scrolling and watching to subscribe to This Is Woman's Work on YouTube. I am Nicole Khalil, and you're listening to the This Is Woman's Work podcast, where together we're redefining what it means, what it looks and what it feels like to be doing woman's work in the world today. And part of that work, one of the most fundamental, non-negotiable parts, is having agency over your own body, trusting it, understanding it, being believed when you tell somebody something is wrong with it. And listen, there are experiences that are so universally female that they need no explanation. Things like keys between your fingers in a dark parking lot, or an idea that gets ignored until a man comes along and says the exact same thing 10 minutes later and suddenly it's brilliant. Being interrupted, being dismissed. And then there's one that I didn't have a name for until relatively recently. The one where you walk into a doctor's office knowing, and I mean knowing, something is wrong inside this body that you've lived in your whole fucking life, only to walk out with a recommendation to reduce stress, but not to worry because it's just part of getting older. So you either imagined or overreacted about the whole there's something wrong with my body thing, which for me was perimenopause, which, let's acknowledge, affects every woman who's lived long enough to experience it. It's not rare. It's not mysterious, and it's not new. And it still took me well over a decade, a lot of money, a lot of time, and a rotating cast of Western, Eastern, traditional, functional, integrative practitioners to get any real answers. Most of them, I'll be generous, were doing the best they could with the information they had. But the cumulative effect of all of it, it felt like I was being gaslit repeatedly by people I was paying to help me, which led to losing trust in my own body, losing that feeling of agency over something that is fundamentally mine. And again, this was about something as common as perimenopause. I can't even imagine what it feels like to be a woman navigating autoimmune disease, endometriosis, fibroids, or any of the countless conditions that disproportionately affect women and therefore get under-researched, underfunded, misunderstood, and dismissed. The gaslighting isn't incidental. It's systemic. And it does damage that doesn't just disappear when somebody finally hands you a diagnosis or even a cure. Here's what doesn't get talked about enough. Getting answers isn't the end of the story. It doesn't magically undo the years of not being believed. It doesn't immediately repair the trust you lost in your own body. The anxiety doesn't stop because the diagnosis arrived. The hypervigilance doesn't quiet down because the treatment worked. The identity you lost somewhere between sick and well doesn't automatically come back because a doctor tells you that you're fine or because you look fine. Because everyone tells you you look fine, which is another universally female thing, to be judged by your looks. And if you look fine, you must feel fine, right? But fine isn't the whole story, and it never was. And we're getting into it today. Our guest is Amy Kurtz, certified health coach, patient advocate, author, and speaker whose work has been featured on Oprah Daily, Good Morning America, and many more. Her highly anticipated second book, But You Look Fine, Trapped in the Hell Between Sick and Well and How to Break Free, is out now and is for every woman who has been handed a pamphlet but not an answer. So, Amy, welcome to the show. And I want to start with the premise that you share in your book that sick and well aren't a dichotomy, they're a spectrum. And that gap in the middle that you call the illness after the illness is where a lot of women are stuck right now. So, what's actually happening there that medicine isn't addressing?
Thank you so much for having me and for the beautiful intro, and I love you already.
Yay. Feeling is mutual.
For me, when I was writing this book, I was researching that 194 million Americans have at least one chronic health condition. And yet, society has this expectation and this dichotomy that you're either sick or you're well and that there's no space in between. But for anybody who's ever battled an invisible illness, an autoimmune illness, an acute illness, the expectation that you just get back on the horse as soon as it's over is frankly insane and just out of touch. There's literally no way that you could go through a life-altering health condition and act as if you can just go back to normal, because anyone who's ever experienced it knows that there is no going back to normal. Nothing is the same. Everything has changed. You have changed. The whole world has changed. For me, it was decades struggling with late-stage Lyme disease and not knowing what I had. It's impossible to just act as if you're fine when your whole life has changed and the axis on which everything that you functioned on shifted and the rug was ripped up out from under you. So what I experienced, and then what I saw starting with my clients and interviewing 1,000 women and multiple physicians, is that I found myself better. Like, I was physically better, but I was mentally and emotionally not okay. And I didn't even know what I was feeling. I didn't know how to identify it. I didn't know what it was. There was no language for it. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find it anywhere, which also feels insane. But I was suffering with this debilitating anxiety and hypervigilance and fear that everything would come back as it was before, which I learned through my research is a very universal feeling. This could be a migraine sufferer who had hemiplegic migraines, no longer does, yet at the onset of an aura is flat on the couch with an Advil waiting for the migraine to emerge. It could be a Lyme patient like me having a joint flare and thinking it's all going to come back. A cancer patient going back for their scan. It's almost as if I was physically better, and yet my mind hadn't gotten the memo. And it wasn't until I was out to dinner with my husband that he said to me, "Amy, I think there's a second phase of this." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "I just feel that you've been through so much. It's been so traumatic. And there's a second phase for you to look at." And it made my wheels go turning. And I'm like, what? How has no doctor ever mentioned this? I've seen 36 physicians. How has this never been brought up before? But then I started to do a really deep dive into understanding trauma. And I realized that there was no term for people like me, and yet the statistics are outrageously high. They're a 25% increase since I wrote Kicking Sick in 2017. So if almost every single person suffers with some kind of health condition. How are we as a society not acknowledging the aftermath of illness? For me, it was the illness after the illness. When you are struggling with your health, you're in survival mode because you have to be. And everything, the gaslighting, which 70% of women in a Harvard study, 70% of women have reported feeling medically gaslit. That's a huge number. And yet you're just trying to get physically better. So the invalidation, the gaslighting, the disbelief, the questioning if it's in your head, it gets shelved for later. And for me, and I know that I'm not alone in this, but yet not a lot of people talk about it. Once I was physically better, all the things I had put on the shelf came down for the taking. And
Yeah.
it was flooding. And so in my research, I couldn't find a term for this. I couldn't find language. I couldn't find solution. So I called it medical trauma brain, or MTB. And the difference between that and post-traumatic stress is post-traumatic stress disorder is from one singular event. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when the event happens over and over and over again. But what I'm proposing in this, and I hope this is case studied after and peer reviewed, is the threat is your body. So you no longer feel safe within yourself. And the threat happened over and over and over again because you felt as if your body was betraying you. So how do you learn to feel safe inside of your body when you've been traumatized from the experience of getting sick, the experience of dealing with a black and white system when you're in the gray, and the experience of being told that you're just supposed to move forward as if you're fine when you're not?
Okay, so there are so many things in there that I'm guessing I can speak for myself. I can relate to, have experienced. I'm sure every person listening in has some version of what you just talked about. And I think one of the problems that you're really addressing here is that we have this idea or this expectation of what it's, and I put in air quotes, supposed to look like, right? And it's all very linear and all very forward moving, right? Like we don't feel well, we go to the doctor, we get an answer, we feel relieved, we do something about it, we fix the problem, we're cured, we move on, right? Like
Mhm.
that's the ideal state that we think it's supposed to be like, but yet none of us are actually experiencing, or very rarely. And I want to dive into a few parts that you put words on that I have struggled with, and it's the betrayal. You use that word. I've used that word too. Like my body is betraying me. The loss of trust for something I cannot escape, the body that I live in and shouldn't want to escape, by the way. And then that feeling like you're fucking batshit crazy because medical professionals or people who should know or should be able to can't. So let's talk about that a little, like how lonely that feels, how scary it feels when you're in it, and then continues on even if you do get a diagnosis or are able to move forward with a solution that does actually work. What would you say, knowing what you know today, to yourself on doctor number one or number two?
Oh, it makes me emotional. I would say trust yourself. Don't let anybody make you feel like you don't know your body the best. And if something is sounding the alarm, there is something wrong, no matter what anybody says to you. And maybe don't put up with bullshit.
Yeah. And also, I would add, don't beat yourself up.
Yes, totally. 100%. I mean, just so many of the things that you just said just resonated with me so deeply because I think there's a real loneliness epidemic in our country right now. And I can't think of anything lonelier than having a complex, chronic, or invisible health condition. It is so isolating. And part of what happens is that you go to the doctor because you know something is wrong, because you trust yourself and you believe that it's telling you, like, hey, it's time to pay attention because the body is a miraculous vessel that will do that when you listen to it. And we have a very black and white medical system, and people with invisible illnesses that are complex and have multiple problems going on fall into this, what I call the gray zone. And it can feel like the land of the lost, which puts even more pressure on you as a patient because you feel like you have to manage it all, that it's totally up to you to make sure that you're getting the right care, that you're seeing all the right people, that you're making sure they're talking. It's a lot. And for me, the loneliness didn't stop after I was sick. It continued because when I realized I had what I call medical trauma brain, it presented as a feeling that I describe as the Shadowlands, which to me was like, I'd be out to dinner with my friends. I'd be there. I'd be at dinner. I'd be having a great time. I'd be laughing. I'd be connected to them. And yet there was a part of me that felt like my brain was somewhere else entirely, like locked in a prison that felt like a sandstorm desert or the upside down world in Stranger Things, where I just felt like there was a part of me that wasn't there anymore. I didn't know what was happening. And that's the thing that happens over time is, let's say you have something invisible or that's been hard to diagnose, and you're being told over and over again, do you need a Xanax, or you look fine, or they didn't catch that, or any of these invalidating statements that's not just physicians, but loved ones say to you too, because there's no language for how to deal with somebody not feeling well. Nobody teaches anyone how to do any of this. And it's so important. It further isolates a patient, but it more importantly erodes trust in themselves, in their ability to listen to their body's cues. And for me, it started making me think like, maybe I don't know best. Maybe something is in my head. Maybe, and I'd never been that type of person. I'd always really had pretty deep self-trust. But the experience of being a patient for so long made me question myself in a way that was really detrimental to my healing, because for all of the patients that I've worked with and the many people that I've talked with, agency is absolutely key to recovery. And it is a disempowering medical system. I am the daughter of a doctor. Western medicine saves lives. I'm not knocking it at all. I just am saying that when it comes to complex chronic disease, it's a very disempowering system for a patient that has something invisible that takes many layers to fix.
Friend, we named our Skylight calendar Khalil Chaos because honesty matters. And when we got our Skylight calendar, I really thought it was mostly going to be for me, a way to keep schedule straight and maybe stop the endless wait, what time is practice questions. But the person who's most unexpectedly into it is JJ. She picked out her color, marks off her tasks, adds stuff to the grocery list, and picked all of the pictures because apparently she has very strong opinions about calendar aesthetics. Skylight Calendar is designed to bring families together so you have more time for what really matters. And your happiness is Skylight's happiness. So if in 4 months you're not 100% thrilled with your purchase, you can return it for a full refund. No questions asked. Families are just better when they're working together. And right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to myskylight.com/womanswork. Go to myskylight.com/womanswork for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's myskylight.com/womanswork. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. And not only am I a fan, but our kids are too. Here's JJ's oldest friend, Rye, here to tell you all about it.
I'm pretty good at remembering to do my chores. My mom, not so good at remembering to pay me. And when I tell her how much she owes me, she never believes me. That's why we use Greenlight. The Greenlight app has a chores feature that lets you set up jobs, track what's been done, and even sends reminders, so neither of us have any excuses anymore. It's also a debit card and money app for kids, teens, and really the whole family. I can earn, save, spend my own money, and see where it's going. It's not red light, not yellow light, it's green light, and green means go. So go start building your money skills now, and maybe even teach your parents a thing or two later.
And let me jump in to say that every day our kids are handling money without guidance is a missed opportunity. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/TIWW. Don't wait to teach your kids real-world money skills. That's greenlight.com/TIWW to get started. Greenlight.com/TIWW. 100%. And you already kind of dove into this, but it was going to be my next question is I do think, for the most part, doctors are well intentioned and there are a lot of contributing factors to why we may feel dismissed or why we may not get an answer or why the blame doesn't fall solely on the doctor is
Right.
what I'm saying here.
Mhm.
But I did also want to talk because just like I think doctors aren't necessarily being trained on some things, we aren't being trained. And one of the hardest experiences for me, even beyond the doctors, were the well-intentioned friends and family. The people with the advice, why don't you just try this or eat that or do more of this or less of that or, it's probably, and it's like, I know it well-intentioned. Absolutely. And it only served to make me feel more alone, to trust myself less. My question is, how do we better support the people in our life? Because based on the data you shared, we're going to either be or have somebody close to us struggle with something chronic. How do we better support people who are going through something like this? Because I know we want to support them. We just haven't been taught.
It's so wild because getting sick shifts the axis on which everything in your life functions. It's almost like a crucible. Like people disappear, people don't know how to treat you. Your life changes so profoundly. I mean, anyone with chronic illness will tell you that the experience of going through it, you get to know yourself so intimately in a way that maybe you wouldn't have. But for me, I was 25. I looked fine and I was so ill. We don't have a way to talk to people about not feeling well. And it's not only a loss for you as the patient who feels isolated, it's a loss for everyone that loves you, that's stuck around, that wants to be there for you and doesn't know how to. And there's this real disconnect that happens where it's like you don't even know how to speak to each other anymore. And how unfortunate is that? Like the people that really stick around and still don't know how to talk to you, that's an awful place to be in. The number one thing I would say is that invalidating statements are detrimental to a patient and especially to someone you love. This can include, but you look fine. Any better? They didn't catch that?
Why don't you just try?
Yeah, why don't you try this? Susie's nephew's sister's cousin tried this and it worked. You should try that. Maybe you're not seeing the right doctor. Just like things like that make the patient go so much more insular into themselves. And what I found is all a patient really wants from someone that they love, even if they don't fully get it, is validation, which looks very different from all of the things that I just said. It looks more like, I'm so sorry that you're suffering, or I feel terrible that you are struggling in this way. Or my favorite, how can I support you? What do you need? What do you need from me to feel close to me so that I could be there for you through this? I had lived for so long putting on a mask. I feel so sad thinking about it now, but I would put on this I'm fine mask because I think I did it as a protective mechanism to not have to have hurtful conversations with people. And I'd pretend that things were better than they were because I felt like I had to. And it would be like a good patient mask, or I'm 25 years old and I'm out with my friends, so I'll just pretend I'm more okay than I am. I felt so separated from everyone. And the only person that really hurts the most is me, or you who's listening if this resonates. It's a real language issue. Like, if you love somebody who's suffering, and even if you can't see it, ask them what they need. They will tell you. They'll be honest because they need support, as I certainly did. Sounds like you did too, Nicole.
Yeah. And I go back to, I'm talking about perimenopause. Like we're not even going into the disease or chronic. I mean, it's just like if I felt this way and experienced this over a decade of my life with something as common as that, like my heart breaks for people like you. I think of like long COVID or things that are real and happening, but we don't have the understanding of, like, I think when we hear cancer, we sort of understand that we have empathy. But with things like this, where you can't see it and you don't understand it, we have no fucking clue what to do or how to help people. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. One of the things you talk about is how it reshaped your relationship with your body and your sense of trust. I define confidence as firm and bold trust in self. And I've spent the bulk of my adult life working on rebuilding and repairing that trust I have with and for myself. And the physical side of it was often one of the harder parts.
Hmm.
And you talked about wanting validation. And it's really interesting when you're losing that trust in yourself in that way, how helpful it can be to have somebody see it and acknowledge it. You're not crazy. That leads to my next question is how do you repair that sense of trust as you go through an experience like this?
I feel called to like share this little story before I go there. But my last summer, I was with my family and we were having a good dinner, and my aunt was asking me about Lyme disease. And she walked across the room, hugged me, looked me deep in my eyes, and said, "I'm so sorry that you've been through so much pain." I couldn't have comprehended how much that would mean to me. Just pure presence, pure empathy, and not needing anything back from me. And I just think that's really important to say based on what we were
Mhm.
just talking about. So, repairing trust, that was a huge thing for me. Like, I actually thought I trusted myself still. And my current doctor, who has helped me heal and gave me the correct diagnosis, which helps a lot, said the biggest problem I see is that you don't trust yourself. And that was another moment for me where I was like, wow, how did that happen? Because I was always so strong willed. I always felt very confident in the feelings that I felt. But it's important to not pave over your pain, you know, putting on a happy mask for the sake of others. There's a mistake to accept that there's this binary of sick and well, and it's not black and white. The truth is, so many people are suffering in the gray. But what is essential to healing, two things, is processing the grief of who you were with the dreams of who thought you'd become, and picking a physician who wants you to be an active part of the equation. The medical system itself, we're taught this growing up with every kind of authority figure. It's like doctor knows best. And for me, for so long, I would say, I'd throw spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick. I would try everything. I would be on so many things I didn't even know what was working anymore. And I would trust them over myself. And over time, that erodes your trust in yourself because you value someone else's opinion more than you value your own. I think what I'm trying to say now is that don't do as I did, do as I'm urging you to do, which is understand that any kind of illness creates a traumatic event. And what I hope will happen is that if I was younger and I was told, hey, this could be really traumatic for you, this is going to be complicated and hard, I would seek out that kind of therapy. You know, the system says that the physical body is separate than the mental and emotional, and it's not possible. It's literally not possible. The mind, body, and spirit are one. And if we act as if they're not, it's detrimental to the patient. So for me, number one was finding a doctor who literally made me meet him in the middle. He he was like, you've got to, I'll tell you the treatment, but ultimately the pace and how you want to do it is up to you. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't even know how to handle that. I really was like, wait, you mean I can splash in the puddle? Like, are you sure? It felt like I was a little kid that was just asking for permission to step into my own healing experience. And as I said, that was not who I was when this all started. One of the ways that you can start to trust yourself again is to start to really listen to the signals that your body is sending you. This can be in very basic ways. In the book, I talk a lot about starting to listen to your body's basic needs. Like, it can literally just start with peeing. When you have to pee, you go to the bathroom. when you feel thirsty or hungry, you honor that instinct. You start to really, on a very basic level, say, what are my needs? How am I going to listen to you today?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the other things that helped, which I outline in the book, are nervous system regulations. Orienting is a huge thing that helped me, where sometimes I just shut my eyes and say, what is one thing I feel? What is one thing I see? What is one thing I hear? What is one thing I smell? And really putting in routines throughout my day that make me feel grounded and settled inside myself. Because so many patients are just struggling in this way where they don't trust themselves. They're so anxious and hypervigilant or disassociated. It could go either way. And I felt like there was a ghost, like I was a ghost.
I think you just answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyway in case you have anything to add. But some small practical ways to calm the nervous system, to reorient yourself, to repair and rebuild trust in those moments where you might start feeling a physical symptom. You mentioned earlier, like if somebody has been treated with migraines, but they start to get a headache, like it triggers trauma. And so when that happens, whatever it is that you're suffering or dealing with, if it's getting better, but the symptoms peaks up again, and the response is hypervigilance, fear, are there any things that we can do in those moments that help ground and repair trust?
Yes. So I love this question. For me, it's a stop, drop, and roll. Part of reclaiming your agency is not acting on impulse. So it's learning that if you feel fear or you feel this rush of adrenaline or you feel the need to control everything, you just stop for a second. And here are some of my favorite tools. I like to do diaphragmatic breathing, where I'll shut my eyes, somewhere quiet, and literally breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 6, and do that 10 times. Another one is what I just said before, which is orienting to the space around you, because sometimes that can feel, when you're scared, you go right to worst case scenario, but reminding yourself like, hey, I'm here right now, and maybe it won't be as bad as it was before, so let me just settle. I always say, I've learned from a beautiful CBT therapist who's featured in my book that you get to know yourself by learning what a SUD scale is, and that's a stress spike, and then reevaluating what reality is. She also says a lot, will this be scary in 2 minutes, 2 weeks, or 2 years? And the other thing that I thought was so valuable from her interview was talking about how you can take an hour. Most things can wait an hour. So if you have the urge or the impulse or you feel like you need to do something immediately, just stop for an hour. You can, and that means for me, just literally like throwing my phone to the side, walking outside, doing something that I feel calming, like those breath exercises. And just before I react, before I go and pop the Advil, before I go and turn all the shades down if I'm a migraine sufferer, I just wait and see. Because the reality is that you always had the ability to handle things. You knew well enough to get yourself to a doctor. And the reality is, if something extremely dangerous is actually happening, you can handle it. But you've lost trust in yourself. You feel like you can't. And there are a million ways to get back in touch with your strength. And that was a real journey for me. Peter Levine, who is an incredible somatic experiencing, he's the godfather of somatic experiencing, and he shares some nervous system regulation tools that I've found really helpful. So yeah, I think those are places to start. But when I feel a really intense stress spike, I either say I'm going to take an hour, or can this wait a day, and I'm going to have a sleep and see what happens.
Are your ad campaigns lighting up the dashboard, but not the pipeline? That's bullspend, and marketers are calling it out in Dashboard. Confessions.
My boss asked for results, so I opened my dashboard for the only positive-sounding metric I had. Impressions.
Cut the bull spend. See revenue, not just reach. LinkedIn delivers the highest return on ad spend of major ad networks. Advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
This episode is brought to you by Perfect Bistro Cat Food. Cats, this ad is for you. Has your human ever called you picky, persnickety, choosy? If so, Perfect Bistro Cat Food is for you. With ingredients like wild-caught tuna and pasture-raised lamb, tantalizing textures, and delectable flavors that meet even the most discerning cat standards. You're not picky, you're just perfectionists. Perfect Bistro, mealtime perfection for every cat. Have your human visit perfectbistro.com.
The title of your book is But You Look Fine, and I kind of wanted to dive into that a little bit. How much does our focus as women on how we look play a part in this struggle? I think there's this constant, never-ending messaging that, we should look healthy and young, right? Like that's our goal as a woman.
My whole algorithm,
Oh God, yeah.
anti-aging. That's all I'm seeing right now.
Yeah. Well, and then the focus becomes, and then we care so much more about how it looks than how it feels. There is so much around this paradox, or I don't even know what the right word is, but the way things look and the way things feel and the struggle that we have with that as women that I think is unique to women. I'm sure other genders have some version of this too, but this feels unique to us as women. I guess my question is, what are your thoughts? What's your experience about that? How much is this expectation of how we're supposed to look playing a part in how we maneuver and how we feel when we're going through any sort of illness?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's so multifaceted. I'm also curious what your thoughts are on it. But for me, we are constantly, like I just said about my algorithm, bombarded with chasing youth and looking good and being a specific kind of woman. And that's awful. Like, it's awful to put that expectation on a woman. They need to do all of these things so that they never age and that they look beautiful. I mean, that's part of what we're taught makes us valuable when we're young children. It's part of our programming. And that's horrible because women are the most powerful beings in the universe, in my opinion. So the fact that we're put in these boxes and taught that we have to play small, be selfless, and look great while we're doing all of it for everyone and ourselves last is detrimental not only to us, but to our children and to the message that we send out to the world. So it feels like entrapment in some way. For me, with the title was really important to me, that I wanted it to be something that people say that they mean nicely, I think, but that is so ridiculously offensive. Like, if I'm telling you I have hives all over my body, I can't sleep, I have joint pain everywhere, I can barely get out of bed, and you say, but you look fine, or you look good.
Well, it's the support of that narrative that as long as we look good, everything else is just secondary.
100%.
Infuriating.
I'm happy that you asked me that question because nobody's asked me that question yet about the relationship between that and then also the expectation that's put on women.
It just, as you were talking, again, I have to go back to, I'm talking about perimenopause. I just can't even imagine. My empathy is through the roof because if I experienced anything like this with something we all experience, but for me, my number one symptom that I just knew wasn't making any sense was weight gain. It didn't matter what I did or what I ate or it literally didn't matter. I just was constantly gaining weight. And for me, it was, you mentioned grief, and that seems like an extreme word, but like I saw myself a certain way. And then I had to reestablish a relationship with myself and my body and like look into the future of what it was going to look like that was totally different than how I had seen myself all the way through my mid-30s. And so that was really disorienting. There was a lot of shame. I felt a lot of judgment, whether it was real or imagined. I felt a lot of judgment that people thought like, oh, she's not disciplined enough or strong enough or, like all of this noise. And that's what I lived with. And then this like, but I'm doing everything, and I put in air quotes, right, and it's not working was the loss of trust. And then I would just add the absolute disappointment I felt in myself for caring as much as I did. I wanted to be a woman who cared more about who I am than how I looked.
Yeah.
And the fact that I did care as much was like so disappointing. I got a lot of judgment of myself for that. Still do. And it's something that I am working on shedding. But man, your title, it completely jumped out to me. And it felt like a little bit of a let's give the finger to this thing that people are saying with good intentions that is really harmful and hurtful in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so much. And thank you for sharing that. I have so much empathy. Like I had the same thing, and I was told by so many people I had a food intake problem. A food intake
Fuck
problem.
you. Yeah.
Everyone's like, you must be eating too much. It's like, are you kidding? And also, why do you have an opinion about how I look and what my size is? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so offensive. Listen, like, chronic illness might be different than perimenopause, but in some ways, it's even more atrocious because every single woman experiences it until this last 2 years, I haven't heard anything about it. Nobody talks about it. So this is something that women who are the bearer of children, they literally create life and give life. There's been no acknowledgement of their health and this change in their body, like literally none. So can you...
And we are half the population. Like even if our bodies didn't create life or mini miracles, and they absolutely are, we're still half of the population.
Half the population, and there's no acknowledgement that this is a fundamental change that happens in your body, which tells a woman you're on your own, figure it out. Instead of saying, here are things that you could do to make yourself feel so much better. That's where the two link together is like, as a patient with chronic illness like myself, or somebody going through perimenopause, there are so many things you can do to feel better no matter what you are going through that nobody's talking about. And the truth is that 80% of what you do is outside the doctor's office.
I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking about PMS as a young girl, or people who struggle to get pregnant, or there's so many things that are so common that are so not talked about throughout our lifetime. And then if you add in chronic illness or mental health or any of those things, we're so used to not getting information, feeling alone, feeling like there's something wrong with us. Gosh, it's infuriating. And I could not be more grateful for women like you who go public, who say the words, who write the books, who put words on things that we're all experiencing and make us feel seen and heard and less alone. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. It's scary to do, but it's necessary. And you're doing this too with your podcast. I would just say like that millions of women are suffering silently, and there's an invisible wound that happens through this. Doctors don't diagnose it. No one talks about it. Sufferers don't admit to it. This is the universal thing between what you're experiencing, what I've gone through, and what so many of your listeners are. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We should be able to talk about all of the things that are happening to us and be believed and have resources and have ways to have agency over our health and be empowered. And I hope that starts to change.
Me too. Amy, Again, thank you for being here. For you, the listener, the book, again, is called But You Look Fine. Go get it on Amazon or wherever you buy books, but let's keep our local bookstores in business, please. And you can also follow Amy on Instagram at _Amy Kurtz. We're going to put that link and every other way to find and follow Amy in show notes. And Amy, again, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, friend, I'm going to say to you what I wish somebody would have said to me. Whatever is happening inside of your body is real. And the years of not being believed are real. The loss of trust, the hyperfocus, the knowing your body that gets lost somewhere between all the you look fine, all of that is real. And none of it makes you dramatic, weak, or broken. It makes you a woman navigating a system that was not built with you in mind. And that is enraging. And also, if we demand it, it's fixable. We don't have to stay stuck in the gap between sick and well. There is a way through. And the first step, the one that costs nothing and requires no prescription, is believing yourself. Because, and I say this as emphatically as I can, having agency over your own body, your own story, and your own health is abso-fucking-lutely woman's work.